What's up, everybody? Jim and a very special guest this week, Chris Tilly, our IGN UK editor. He's in town. Clearly, Terry and Carl couldn't stand to be here, to be around you, so that's why they're not
disappointing.
Around. Yeah, right? They don't know what they're missing now. They're both, Carl's out and Terry's seeing a movie. Yeah. So that's part of the job.
I'm in. I hope I don't let everyone down with this appearance.
No, you won't. No, you're bringing the British steel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to actually talk about James Bond in a little bit of a mutual property we both love, you know. But I want to kick it off with talking about a movie that opened in wider release over here last weekend after having a couple of really good weekends in limited release, Steve Jobs. And it bombed over here.
Yeah.
I believe it was in like 7th place with 7-something million. And to date, domestically, it's only made 11.5 million. It cost 30 million to make. Right. I just want to ask the question, why did Steve Jobs fail?
Yeah, well, we've both seen the film and both really liked it.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's a hard one because even the studio thought it was going to be a much bigger hit than that. I think it came in at less than half what they'd predicted. And
only a few million more than the god-awful Ashton Kutcher one made, which...
Is that right?
Yeah, it was only like maybe 500,000 more that weekend.
I don't know, like you and I talked about earlier about the Social Network. Like I thought that would be this year's Social Network, which was a sizable hit. Yeah. You know, it's a similar kind of subject really. It's a technology that we all love and use and know.
Sorkin.
With Sorkin, a really interesting kind of mysterious guy at the centre of it all. Yeah. Great director. Yeah. Great movie. Great reviews. I'm lost. I think you've got more theories than I have, really.
I got a couple because I've been stewing on this now for a week because it's only in hindsight really that you start thinking, yeah, I guess maybe that's why it didn't really click, and why Sony initially passed on it, which was they doubted its commercial viability, and they're the ones who put out Social Network. So they saw something, even though they loved the script, they saw something in there, and they ended up being right, but they took a lot of flack for it at the time for passing on it, and Universal ended up picking it up. So I have a couple of theories. One, I'm poaching from Eric Goldman, who at lunch today spitballed this, and it made a lot of sense, which was Social Network was about guys you didn't really know anything about, and they were these friends, and the idea was that did he really invent it or did he steal it from his friends? So there was that sense of getting betrayed by your friends, and the very idea of Facebook being about connecting friends.
It gave it kind of a thriller element.
Yeah, yeah. There was definitely a heartbeat there at the center. Whereas a guy who's a not very good father trying to work some relationship out with his daughter over time probably didn't resonate as well. Yeah. I have another theory, which is, I guess it's two-part. I'm not sure if people realize that Apple had nothing to do with this movie, because maybe they feel like I've given enough of my money to Steve Jobs and Apple over the years. You know, it costs like, I mean, I have a phone. It's like, what was this, like $500 or maybe less? I don't know, something, but enough for a phone, you know.
But I love my phone. It's not going to make me less.
Phone too. Everybody in the world has been touched literally or figuratively by Steve Jobs, but you know.
That sounds. I hope no one takes that out of context.
Well, you know. Fassbender, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just feel like he's not a guy, he didn't seem like the kind of guy you could root for, whereas even watching those trailers for Social Network, which were really good, you get a sense of, here's a good guy, and here's the guy who might be the bad guy. Yeah. You know, this just seemed like, look at this prick, you know, like it just didn't have the same kind of resonance.
Do you think it would have been a bigger hit if it had been DiCaprio playing?
No, I think the movie still would have had an issue. It probably would have opened bigger if it was him or Bale, but I think ultimately it's a hard sell. I think it would have opened big, but I don't think it would have done too much better because, you know, I think stardom matters in certain movies, but I feel like in something like this, if people felt like they already knew enough about Steve Jobs, I don't know if a Christian Bale or a Leo could have gotten them in there. I mean,
one, wasn't he? Yeah.
People, you know, Bale was Moses, and that movie didn't really do too well.
Yeah, but that wasn't a very good movie. Yeah, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
I guess we've just got to urge everyone to go and see it.
Well,
give it a good second
been
weekend.
A glut of Steve Jobs stuff between documentaries and you know, just TV programs on him, and yes, the Ashton Kutcher movie, which really did kind of muddy those waters. It wasn't like, hey, they're making another movie that's kind of like the one we all liked. Nobody liked that one, you know. So I don't know. I just feel like the Steve Jobs movie, even 30 million, is that maybe still too much? You know, like, could you have made this movie for 15? Maybe it wouldn't have been that bad. But you know, I liked the technical way they did it though, with the filming on old time film stuff. Old time 16 was it, and then they did more like 35, and then they did just high def video for the more modern part.
And if they'd come up to date, there was talk about if they'd done another section, maybe filming it on an iPhone.
It would have been great.
That would have been interesting.
I am curious. Do you think that is this movie going to get released in China? I mean, this is where, you know, so much of the controversy about Jobs and about Apple and making of the iPhones and iPads and everything, and basically like human slave labor of you know. Do you think that movie will play over there? If
no, it doesn't get discussed in the film though. It doesn't really come up.
No, at all. I mean, I don't even think there was even a mention.
No.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it wouldn't be as big a problem as if it had been mentioned in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it opens in the UK next week, so I'm hoping that it finds more of an audience. Is
he a guy that's somebody who's talked about over there?
Yeah, sure. I think everywhere he's a guy who's talked about.
Do you think how unlikable is too unlikable for a protagonist? I mean, we've had movies where, you know, the main character is a prick.
Yeah.
And you follow it, and usually, yes, it's a redemptive arc, but sometimes it's a tragedy, you know, and you know.
I think they can be horrible, but they've got to be compelling. There's got to be something. You know,
Tony Montana, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking back today. I'm reading this movie, Kill Your Friends, which is like an English American Psycho, and like American Psycho is an example, isn't it? There's something very watchable about that character and about that performance, and he's a despicable human being, but you just got to find something compelling about the character, and I think they do with Jobs.
Yeah, I think what they managed to make him somebody who's so autocratic and so machine-like in his own way, and a lot of the credit has to go to, yes, Sorkin, but also Fassbender and Danny Boyle, but you know, they made him flesh and blood. Yeah. You know, he wasn't just an android, you know. That's Prometheus. You know? But yeah, well, we're curious to think why didn't you go see Steve Jobs? Was there something about it, or did it look like a movie that you could have just watched at home and you didn't need to see it on the big screen?
Jim needs someone to blame, so
I know
we're looking for people to blame.
You right there, you, the guy watching. We want to know. Let us know in the comments. Let's move on from that and talk about some of the big stuff that happened in the geek world this week.
You're going to have to fill me in because I've been on vacation over here, so I've not really been going to IGN like I normally do every day.
Well,
what have I missed, Jim?
The irony is it all started in your home country. Empire magazine.
Empire got some covers.
Has all these covers of Suicide Squad. So you've seen these though.
Yeah, I have.
2 Joker covers. Harley, Deadshot, and Enchantress so far. There's some new still photos. I think that's probably it for the covers that we're going to get. I can't, although I personally would have loved a Killer Croc one, or even Captain Boomerang. Just show me him with his boomerangs.
You'd like a picture of our friend Killer Croc, is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, Killer Croc, who, Adewale Akini-Agbaje, I can say his name.
Wow.
Him.
I was just going to say Adebisi from...
and Gugu Mbatha need to make a movie with like some Polish filmmaker with a really difficult name just to screw with everybody, you know? But yeah, no, we saw him at, last night at the...
Trumbo premiere.
Was that? No, that was the night before.
A couple of nights ago. Yeah, and he was really excited about being Killer Croc, wasn't he?
It's going to be so cool. I can't say anything about some of the stuff that I know.
Did he say anything to us? Not really.
He just said that it was a. What did he say? He said something along the lines of like it's going to be a really crazy kind of take on all this. So
he said it's really.
We'll see.
There.
Well, as we see from the new covers, Joker, definitely a glam rock thing going on. What we haven't had a chance to talk about. What do you think of the aesthetic of this movie and the looks and the costumes?
I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer now. I don't like the look of any of it.
Yeah.
Like the trailers, the stills. which is totally against what the majority of people on our site are saying.
I love the trailer.
And the people in our office. No, I didn't. I'm just there's something about it that's giving me a really bad feeling.
Okay.
But I know I'm in a massive minority, so I don't want to kind of.
It doesn't mean you're not going to end up being right.
It's just not capturing that. There's a darkness and it just looks like it's from the early '90s to me.
Yeah.
It looks like, you know, around the time The Crow came out or something. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. I think it's a really interesting casting choices. A lot of actors I'm not madly in love with, but like...
I'm not a Jai Courtney fan.
No.
I think he's pretty wooden.
Yet to figure out what I think of Delevingne.
Yeah, she seems to be more Twitter presence than an actor right now, but we'll see.
And Jared Leto, I find, can be either really good or really over the top. And obviously there's potential to do both of those things and for it to work.
Well, what do you think of the look with that purple leather jacket and the bare chest and no shoes?
Yeah.
And he's wearing, and we understand like why he's dressed like that. It looks like he just escaped from Arkham. He's wearing his Arkham pajama pants, basically sweatpants. But when is that?
It's the best My Chemical Romance poster I've ever seen. I don't know. Well, everyone's saying it's like the emo Joker, or it's someone that looks like they're cosplaying at being the Joker or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got those worries, but I think it's totally unfair to like judge it based on stills, because we did a little bit of that certainly in the UK office when Empire released the X-Men Days of Future Past covers.
Oh yeah,
Quicksilver. A lot of Quicksilver. You know, the worst cover, the most laughable outfit, and he was the best character in the film. So I'm trying to like, you know, temper my sort of pessimism.
Well, and also, I mean, look, Enchantress has caught some flack because she's even as risque and kind of, lack of a better term, slutty as they have Harley Quinn dressed. It's kind of like how she dresses in the comics now, and but Enchantress is far less clothed than she is in the comics. Do you think are they a little tone deaf to the times in which they're presenting their female characters? I feel like they might be. I mean, I think it's just, to be honest, I mean, as two guys, we might not, as progressive as we both are, you know, there's still nuances that maybe we're not catching, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know?
Yeah, and I think X-Men looks similar as well next summer. Some of the outfits that we've already seen from Apocalypse looks a bit kind of, we're still doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
I guess their excuse is, oh, it's the 80s, but again, we'll have to see with these people in motion, these characters in motion.
I mean, Mystique has been walking around naked,
I guess so,
for like the last 15 years. So, but no, I feel like I think the thing with the internet now is, though, like as much as we're into outrage culture, if you are making changes to a character to in some way rob them of their dignity, you know, just to be titillating, I could see how that could upset some people, but kind of, you know, curious to see if within the context of the movie it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, Harley Quinn, definitely get the idea that she does this as psychological warfare. She's going to distract the guy that she wants to take out by looking good, looking hot, you know, and misleading him. Which actually leads me to another thing, something Will Smith alluded to in his Empire interview, which is he said that there might be a bit of a love triangle, kind of a twisted romance thing going on, at least an attraction, maybe more, between Deadshot, Harley, and then Harley and Joker. So, and that she's trying to kind of break free of the Joker's hold. What do you think of that?
I think it's interesting.
It's interesting, but do you think that's going to tick off fans?
Well, I didn't really get a sense of how big and pronounced that was going to be.
Yeah.
From what he said. He just kind of alluded, and I think people are extrapolating a bit more from it than maybe what he actually said.
I mean, it could be something as simple as like the quote-unquote love triangle of Han, Luke, and Leia in the first Star Wars, where it's just one guy's flirting with her, one guy kind of likes her, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to clearly be far more extreme than that. Excuse me.
Yeah. But I think he was talking about just glancing at her or something, or he gives her some looks like, so. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be as big a deal as maybe we're fearing.
Yeah, I think when people hear the word the phrase love triangle, they have a tendency to kind of wig out a little bit. Any other thoughts on what you've seen so far of Suicide Squad? What do you think its biggest hurdle is to finding a mass audience and just not the fanboy niche? And is the Joker kind of the key to?
I think so. Yeah,
that?
I think or Will Smith in the kind of lead, like, you know, is Will Smith still that movie star that people will go in their droves to see? Obviously, he's had some flops recently, but he's still Will Smith. And
Will Smith plus Joker.
Yeah,
that's
a pretty exciting combination.
Do you think the marketing going forward, and I would imagine we're probably going to get a new trailer pretty soon. Do you think it's going to be more just Will and Joker centric, and some Harley in there?
Well, I hope they'll give us a bit of a more sense of who the characters are, because it's all been very fast, and I still haven't got a sense of what it really is at this point.
Yeah, you don't really get a sense of is the bad guy in the movie the Joker, or is it Enchantress? I've heard it's Enchantress, you know, and I have a feeling that, you know, this has been rumblings out there for a while about it really being her. And, you know, we've seen some of those weird set photos with soldiers that look like they had bug heads, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so, I don't know.
Are you excited for the whole thing, though?
I am. I really am. I think I like David Ayer, and I like his movies. I like the idea. I liked the comics when I was a kid. And it just... God, I was giving them a lot of rope there, and I hope they don't hang me with it for, you know, the more I do see of the Joker, the more it's getting a little much for me. Like, I was like, okay, let's just see it, some tattoos. Yeah, damaged is stupid, but maybe in the grand scheme of things, it won't bug me. But, you know, he's got to, at a certain point, I need him to be the Joker, too. He's got to be... He's got to be that guy, and I just don't want to see, like, just I'm a rock star kind of thing. You know, I don't want it to be a Jared Leto, you know, vanity, project. You know.
Yeah.
Let's move on from Suicide Squad and talk about a big Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Woohoo!
We've got some casting on that. Pom Klementieff, I think I get her name fairly right. Maybe she'd do a movie with Adewale Akinyi-Agbaje and Gugu Mbatha, and we'll be all set. She has been cast in a quote-unquote mystery role in Guardians 2. However, Deadline is saying that they've heard that she's Mantis, which makes sense because Mantis is I believe, half Vietnamese, and Pom is a Asian actress.
Ah, okay.
So that's what is leading everyone to that speculation.
Is this exciting news? I don't really know anything about her or that character.
Well, I think it's going to be, well, she wasn't initially green in the comics, and then she ended up green skinned and with the antenna. So I kind of hope they go the full alien looking thing on her. It's interesting. It'll be, what's more interesting is that we heard that Matthew McConaughey passed on the villain role. And you know, there's a lot of speculation, and I actually have a few names here about who he could play. Could he really be Peter Quill's dad, which would be different from in the comics? His dad was a guy, I think it was Jason or something like that.
Yeah, but they said they're going in a different direction, I think.
Yeah, because like the way the father was described in the first movie is like a space angel kind of thing, which you know, people think, oh, is it Adam Warlock? But I think it's Magus or Magus. How do you the M-A-G-U-S? He's kind of there's a long, complicated thing. Goldman could get this more accurate than I could, but he's kind of like Adam Warlock's like evil twin or evil side or whatever, and he could conceivably be that kind of role or that, you know, that villain. You know, some people were like, oh, maybe it's Michael Korvac, the Korvac saga, but he was human, and James Gunn, I believe, has said that. The only human, the only Earthling in the movie is going to remain Star-Lord. That there'll be new characters, but Star-Lord's going to stay the only human. So I guess, you know, there's also part of me that's like, maybe he's the Beyonder, but he's going to wear that, like, a Hasselhoff kind of outfit, you know? Let's talk, though, about Marvel. They really are without fear in terms of, like, let's just go for those A-listers. Let's go for, even though I don't think they need them. I mean, Corey Stoll is a respected actor, but he's not a household name. He's kind of a that guy actor. And Ant-Man has now made over $500 million with him as the villain. So,
Yep.
But they're going for McConaughey. They try to get Joaquin Phoenix for, not that he's a very respected actor, but like, you know, you're going for McConaughey. It was just an Interstellar and True Detective won the Oscar.
Yeah, I really think with them though, it's not about going for the movie star. They just want to get the right person for the right role. Like they really do seem to care. And with something like Guardians, they really nailed it with all that casting.
Yeah.
Apart from the villain, I didn't think Lee Pace was great as the villain. But I think, the
it's
villain
really more
the villain was
writing of the
underwritten.
villain, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they've obviously got a role that they thought McConaughey was perfect for, and so that's why they went after him.
Because you know, they're sensitive to the villain criticism. That's like, let's get that great actor then and make sure.
Yeah, maybe so.
Happen, you know?
Maybe so. I mean, they should be because it has been
a
real weakness.
What's been your favorite Marvel movie?
It's Guardians.
No, your favorite Marvel movie villain. So
favorite Marvel movie villain. Oh gosh.
I mean, everyone says Loki. I love Loki, but I feel like Red Skull has been the unsung villain so far. Hugo Weaving could have really just hammed it up in that role, and he did it. It's actually quite subdued for a guy with a red skull for a face. He kind of underplays it.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I say Ben Kingsley is the Mandarin?
You sure can.
It was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, he was great. Look, I never knew Mandarin even had fans until the backlash. Come on, people.
And hey, did you watch the short?
The short?
Yeah, the one shot.
That was great. Well, it holds out hope that there might be another man, but I don't think they're ever going to follow up on that. What do you think?
No, I don't think so either.
It
was a fun thing to explore, but
Marvel is beginning to do this where they have these like a lot of loose ends, frankly, that they don't tie up. Like, and I just sort of I don't want to have to wait till Phase 5 to find out what the hell happened to Red Skull.
Yeah, I mean, I did really like Ultron as well.
Yeah, I feel like Ultron. What I liked about it was that it did. He captured basically Tony Stark. You know, it was James Spader doing his best, Robert Downey. I just feel like they could have done some more interesting things with him, and the attempts at and the humor. Well, good didn't it declawed him. You know, I wanted to see him actually really like go after him, like kill somebody, like do something truly evil.
That's a fair point. But they are building up to the ultimate villain right now, aren't they?
If he finally gets off his ass.
But can it ever live up to expectations, though? You've got so many films hyping this character. I can't possibly be as good as...
What is he going to actually do? Like, you know, Joshua Yale and I were chatting yesterday, and I think you were there. No, you weren't there for it. We were talking about, I guess now in the comics, like Thanos has I think they're called like the Black Order or something. He's got like a kind of like a group of acolytes, henchmen that do his bidding and fighting and stuff. And I could see them working that into Infinity War, because I think you're going to want to save the Thanos fighting stuff the way that you save Hulk.
Yeah.
You want those to be your big key scenes.
The money shot.
But right now, just Thanos as a character, and I think Guardians, as much as I love it, and I believe we actually named it our, what was our office vote, favorite Marvel movie. I don't think Guardians did him any favors, because, you know, Lee Pace is sitting there talking back to him, Ronan, and he didn't squish him like a bug. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, they take that crap from that guy, you know?
Yeah.
Who's been, you think Lee Pace has been the let's stop throwing Lee under the bus. Ronan has been the worst villain, or no?
No.
Who's the worst villain?
The one whose name Dan and I can never remember when we do the superhero show, but Christopher Eccleston played him in Thor: The Dark World.
Malekith, the Accursed.
Yeah, I thought that was by far the worst.
Yep, I agree with you guys. Absolutely, Malekith was.
I imagine.
And I liked him in the comics. It was really cool.
Well, I imagine there's like 45 minutes of his material on the cutting room floor somewhere, because it's just bizarre that how little time he got on screen and how underdeveloped he was as a villain. It's
funny too. Like I feel like we've had so many Marvel movies. There's only been 12, but I already forget people that had been in them. Like I forget that Jeff Bridges did a Marvel movie. He was the bad guy in Iron Man 1. You know, it's easy to forget like that Incredible Hulk is actually MCU. You know, you forget. So Tim Roth has been in there. You know? Speaking of Marvel stuff, recording the Collider, the Captain America Civil War trailer, and this is kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's going to drop with Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Saw some footage of it at D23. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I am curious. There was no Spidey in that footage.
Right.
Tom Holland has said he was on set. In fact, he said he got injured on set.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to pull a Luke Skywalker and not show Spidey in the Civil War trailer?
I don't think they need to show him yet.
Yeah.
They can, especially if it's a teaser.
Okay.
There's enough going on in that film that it doesn't need that. That's something they could drop much later, I think. Do
you think it would confuse audiences to see this and then just see friendly neighborhood Spider-Man show up? You'd be like, wait, what? Like,
I think people would love it. I think,
yeah?
I don't think it take people long to figure out what's going on.
Okay, all right. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have, just throwing out a couple little tidbits here.
Yep.
We don't even have to discuss them too much, but Batman v Superman, Batman's armor that we've seen in a lot of the Superman battles, while he does wear a suit at some points, a lot of it is going to be like, it sounded like a motion capture suit. Okay. And that they're going to add it digitally so that he could actually move around. Right. And it wouldn't look clunky. Yeah. And then George Clooney is producing an all-female Ocean's 11 movie. I don't know if it's a reboot, remake, or just a new movie with that kind of like brand name. And Sandra Bullock's going to star because they're buddies. If the internet has a meltdown like they did with Ghostbusters, I'm not going to believe it because I don't think anybody's favorite movie was Ocean's 11.
Will Catherine Zeta-Jones play herself in it? Was it her or was it Julia Roberts? I forget.
It was, no, Julia Roberts was George Clooney's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones was
But
Brad
don't they
Pitt's
realise she
girlfriend,
looks like Julia Roberts, the actress, in the second one? And so
because Bruce Willis plays himself. Yeah. And he's doing that whole bit. Oh, that movie was terrible. The first and third ones I liked. Second one is just mess.
And who will, if it is a remake, who's going to replace Don Cheadle's Cockney accent? Because that's the worst.
They, you know what they'll do? They'll get Rebel Wilson and just make her Aussie. Well, she's already Aussie. Yeah. Let's talk about, because Halloween is upon us.
Yeah.
Let's
That's why I'm here.
Horror.
I've come to LA for some scares.
Yeah, you're like the Predator. You're in town with a few hours to kill, or like Tom Cruise in Collateral. You're just gonna go in. I'm your Jamie Foxx, running you all over. Let's talk about horror movies that have come out this year. Yeah. Our favorites and least favorites, and then some ones that are coming up, because maybe the folks watching the podcast here don't know, but you cover a lot of film festivals for us, a lot of primarily genre film festivals. Yeah, exactly. And you're connected with a lot of filmmakers. Yeah. So you see a lot of the horror stuff that's coming up before anyone else, general audiences get to see it.
And it really feels like there's a real horror community is built up out of these festivals of filmmakers that are collaborating with each other, working with each other, helping each other out. I think it's a really good time for actually quite smart, independent horror films. I think we're in a really good place.
Why do you think it is that horror? Because I've noticed this in the past, even amongst, for the most part, amongst horror websites, horror fan sites. Why do you think it is the horror community seems to kind of circle the wagons for each other in a way that other filmmakers don't? It seems like there's more of a brotherhood mentality.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It feels to me like a lot of the creators in that industry try not to separate themselves from the fans. Yeah. We're all in it together. There's no VIP rooms at these festivals. You can just hang out, talk to the filmmakers afterwards. And it's not the same when you go to like art house festival like a Cannes or something. That's never going to happen. Yeah. So I feel like it's quite nice. It's like everyone feels like they're all pulling together. Yeah. And as a couple of guys have said to me, like there's not as much competition because they see that if your horror film succeeds, then mine's got a better chance of getting a bigger release and succeeding. So rather than wishing ill on each other, they're kind of pulling for each other because it's good for the whole industry if it's
reminds me a bit
making
of
some money.
Theater in a way, like the way that I can't speak to this too much, but like that theater, you're kind of all in it together. Like, you got to be more of a scrappy upstart, and you have to kind of do it yourself, and you need to get word of mouth out there, and it doesn't help anybody if one of them fails because that will roll back at you. Yeah. So let's talk about the horror movies we've seen this year that we liked. Let's start with you.
I think
you have more of them committed to memory.
I do, but I think you've seen a few of these. So I think the one that stands out this year has been It Follows.
I agree.
Such an interesting, smart, original film. It did divide some people, I think, because it is slow.
Well, Tarantino has pointed out some of the mythology problems with the movie that I think have that last stretch when they're in the pool and stuff. I think I can see the criticisms of that, but I think it's a damn good movie.
And it's frightening.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great concept. You know?
Yeah, and Micah Monroe, I think she's a really interesting up-and-coming actress. She also did The Guest last year.
She sat right in that chair. Or maybe she sat in this chair. Either way, she sat right here.
Well, she's great. She's awesome. Great in The Guest. Did you see The Guest? I mean,
yes.
That was last year, but that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably the standout horror film that's come out so far this year. But another one that's been good is The Visit.
I still haven't seen it.
That was just a nice surprise because M. Night, you know, his last couple of films weren't for me, maybe weren't for you.
No, were pretty terrible. Evidently not for anybody, yeah.
So he's gone back to what he knows. He's gone with Jason Blum's production company, made a low-budget horror film, super low budget.
But it's funny too.
No stars, and it's funny, and it's damn frightening, and it was a big hit, and I think he's just announced he's going to do another scary movie next. So I think
it's called Split. James McAvoy.
Yeah. So I think he's back in his niche now, M. Night, having kind of experimented with some other things. I think he's going to stay on solid ground.
And he's had you know, some success with Wayward Pines on television over here. So
yeah,
it's nice to see a guy kind of get their footing back, you know. And especially like I do feel like he was pretty arrogant. We all read those interviews and remember all the didn't he do the fake documentary about him or whatever was that nonsense a few years ago. And so he has, and unfortunately this is Hollywood, so you have to get humbled and then they build you back up, and it's you know, it's just.
I'm a big fan of his. I'm really glad that I can get passionate about one of his movies again.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a film I'm really passionate about, which I don't think's come out in the UK, and I think over here it might be out on VOD already. Deathgasm.
I've heard of it. I have not seen that one.
I cannot recommend this highly enough, especially if you're looking for something fun to watch on Halloween. It's got a real Shaun of the Dead, Evil Dead 2 vibe. It's very funny. It's very silly. It's about these teenage kids in New Zealand who are kind of losers, and they're in a terrible rock band, and then they find a record and play it backwards, and they summon a demon, and then they've got to save the world by destroying this demon. And it's really, really funny. But the effects as well are absolutely top notch.
Really?
I think maybe the director worked at Weta. But it's one of these films where, a bit like Black Sheep a few years ago, where it's a funny, silly film, but they've actually really nailed it with the effects. So
speaking of New Zealand, in Evil Dead, I have to say, last night I saw Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah.
There was a premiere and they showed the first episode. It's great. It's so much fun. And Sam Raimi directed it. He's not. I don't think he's directing every episode, but it was exactly what you would kind of hoped and expected. You know, is it perfect? No, but it's fun and it's as dumb and goofy as you would hope.
Is it gory?
Yeah, but like ridiculous gore, you know, exactly what you want. Like somebody gets half their head shot off, but they're still going, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's just, it's good. I'm looking forward to, and it's already been renewed for a second season.
Yeah.
So Starz clearly likes what they've seen.
Yeah.
Okay, some other, what horror movies have come out this year that didn't work for you?
I didn't make a note of any of them.
I don't want to be negative, but say Poltergeist reboot.
Okay, so I didn't watch it.
No, you didn't miss it.
Yeah.
And I like Gil Keane. I like that director.
And Sam Rockwell's a great actor.
Great. Yeah, and oh God, her name went right out of my head, the one who plays his wife. But yeah, it's a great cast, but it speaks to the fact that like horror remakes largely aren't good. You know, there's been a few ones that worked. Like I know Carl is a big fan of the Friday the 13th remake from like what, 2009?
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead was good.
Yeah, there's Snyder Dawn of the Dead. But like this just, it reminded me, not as bad, but like a little bit of the Omen remake where you're being faithful to the gist of the original movie and you have good actors, but there's something tone deaf. There's something bloodless about it, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
One that maybe I get a sense we're disagreeing on is Insidious 3.
Yeah.
Because I liked Insidious 3 and you didn't.
I didn't really care.
Why didn't you like?
It was there were moments that I liked the father-daughter stuff, but I felt like it was a movie that was. I didn't like the kind of the just the cheesiness of it. Although the man who can't breathe, or what they call?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I like the idea of that villain and sort of the aesthetic of it. Yeah, it was okay. I just wasn't nuts about it. I thought it was a little too, like, especially at the end, because it's a prequel. It's like Lin Shaye's like, "Come on, boys, let's go."
See, I really like that. I really like that. I think those characters are great, and we've spoken to the writer and the director, Lee Winnell, who plays one of those characters, Specs, and he said that if they do a fourth one, it'll definitely follow on from that moment where it's a film that's literally about them finally, rather than them coming in to save the day at the end.
Right, right.
And I think I'd like to spend more time with those characters. I think they're really fun. I think she's amazing.
Yeah,
and they turned her into like a kick-ass heroine in this one.
And she's a very sweet lady. I don't know if you've ever
never
had a
met
chance to
her.
meet her. She's really nice.
I'd love to
really
meet
cool,
her.
Yeah. She's very cool. Any other horror movies coming up that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, one last one I was going to mention that's out is We Are Still Here, which is a great little ghost story by Ted Geoghegan, who is a publicist that we've dealt with.
Oh yeah,
and he's directed a movie, and it's really effective.
Yeah,
it's slow, but it gets there, and the last half hour is crazy.
You know, it's funny. That's the second publicist I knew who has now become a film director. The other one was Justin Simeon. He used to work at Sony, and he made Dear White People last year. And I got a card in the mail from Spirit Awards, and he's on the cover with an award.
Amazing.
And so I'm like, dude, you're in my mailbox.
Yeah.
He's like, I think it's so funny. He used to be, Justin used to be the guy sitting in the hallway at the junkets checking people in.
Good for him.
And yeah, it's astounding. So it can be done, people. Can be
done.
And
I'll recommend 3 for next year, just to get on people's radars. There's a film called The Devil's Candy, which is a really good fun. It's
not
like,
about the making of bonfires of the vanities.
No, it's not.
I would love to see that one.
It's a bit like Deathgasm actually. It's about like a haunted house, and it's set in Texas. And like it's the guy who's in the house, the dad of the family. He's a guitar playing artist, and but so I'm not selling this one very well right now. But again, there's like an evil spirit, and it's a real rock and roll horror film. It's funny, but it's also like really exciting. And
so I'm seeing a through line here. You like haunted house movies or evil spirit movies?
This is just what I'm seeing.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you one that isn't. The Witch.
Okay, this one I've been hearing about. I love any movie that's a period film.
Yeah.
And particularly basically old New England, like colonial New England.
It's set in New England about 40 years before the witch trials.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in a time when you can see this building and this fear in these people. And it's a people who believe the Bible, but also they're not very well educated. They believe fairy stories and fairy tales, and all this stuff gets mixed up in their brains. So they start.
And they live out in the woods.
They live.
Right?
Yeah.
So
this is a family that's
going to play on your.
It's a family that's cut off, and actually the main guy is Chris Finch from the British Office. So I smiled the first time he was on screen, but then I didn't smile again because he's very good. The language is very old-fashioned language.
Oh, nice.
So it's all, you know, you really have to take time to let your ear.
That's a ballsy horror movie. I love that.
It's more an art house film than like a horror film.
That trailer is online. We have it. It's fantastic. Check it out.
It's a very, very beautifully made film, and it stays with you. The ending stays with you for a long time. So that one's really good. And then this one, the final one, it's more maybe a thriller, but it's very violent when it's violent. So I'm putting in, and that's Green Room, which has Patrick Stewart in, and it's kind of about, it's basically punks versus Nazis. It's like an old John Carpenter film with this punk band that you quite like, getting trapped by these Nazis who are trying to kill them, and they've got to try and escape. And so it's like a siege. It's a siege movie, really.
I gotta see that.
But it's so well put together.
It's Green Room. So,
yeah.
All right. Oddly enough, opening up this weekend is could say Scouts versus Zombies, but the actual title is Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Yep.
You did mention a little bit about horror comedies. I find like that's a really tough thing to pull off.
Yeah.
What from the number of ones that you've seen, what does it take to pull off a horror comedy?
Oh, that's a good question. If I knew, I'd be making them.
I mean, I feel like it's even some of the best filmmakers can't recapture that. Like,
it's someone that really, you've got to really understand the horror genre, I think.
Yeah.
You can't just come in with a comedy director.
Yeah.
And get them to do a good horror comedy. I think it needs to be a horror director who has a good sense of comic timing. Yeah.
Do you you know
like Edgar Wright? Yeah, like
so
Edgar Wright, like Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Landis though, he did it with American Werewolf.
Yeah. Which to me is still the best horror comedy.
Yeah. I think you just and then there's examples that contradict that. I think the guy who did Zombieland hadn't done a horror film, but if you've got to understand a horror film.
James Gunn understood it because he did all the trauma stuff when he did Slither. So.
And so when it's nasty, it's got to be nasty and scary, and all those films have that. It can't be half-hearted.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it can't be like almost like a spoof.
And because I think in a way they seem to forget the ones that don't work. That you're not making fun of the horror. Yeah. You're making fun of your reaction to the horror. The horror has to be horrific, but titillating too in its own way.
They seem to be good at it in New Zealand as well, because the best one I saw last year was a movie called Housebound. And it's really frightening.
I think that's on Netflix. If you
it's fantastic, and that's a perfect Halloween one. It's really frightening, but man, it's funny when it's funny, and then and it's in that Peter Jackson universe that Black Sheep was and Deathgasm is. So, and What We Do in the Shadows was quite a good one, although that was more funny than scary. But.
Director now doing Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's move on to James Bond, because you have seen the movie. You've reviewed Spectre for us.
Yes,
it doesn't open up here until next week.
I've reviewed Spectre for you, and then I've reviewed all the negative comments underneath my review as well, which has been enjoyable to read. So thank you everyone for that.
His home address is what. In a nutshell, and again, no spoilers.
Of course, yeah.
What you gave it a good rating.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's, coming off of Skyfall, good's not good enough.
No.
So what exactly did it fail to kind of nail? Fail to nail.
It's the longest Bond movie. And yet I feel, which is saying something.
Yeah, because when they'd show them on cable over here, it would be like a 3.5 hour block.
And I just feel, and that was one of my criticisms in my review, which people said, well, that's not criticism. But it is when not enough happens in that 148 minutes to warrant it being that long. You could tell that story in under 2 hours. So that's the problem.
Please tell me that they do as much old school stuff of him like walking around hanging up his dry cleaning with the that's what we watch some of those old Sean Connery ones that everyone is always, those were the best. You go back, you watch some of them, there was a lot of filler.
Yeah, a lot.
There's like Sean's driving, Sean's hanging up his suit.
It's maybe not filler, just one too many action set pieces, one too many places he has to travel to get another piece of the puzzle. And it really felt to me like it was Bond going through the motions a little bit. We've got to hit this beat here, this beat there. There's got to be 3 Bond girls. They're going to come at this point.
I mean, that has always been the formula, though.
It is a formula, and I just felt like they mixed it up a little bit with Skyfall.
Yeah.
M was ultimately the Bond girl in that film, really, and the villain giving himself up so early, kind of Seven style. It just made it a little more interesting. Whereas this one feels like I've seen this before, I've seen this done better, and with it being Mendes, like there's so much. I was really willing it to be better than Skyfall.
It sounds like the problems were on paper, and we do know from the reports out of the Sony leak that they did have script concerns. Would you agree that a lot of the problems with the movie were just started right there in story level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like a solid first draft that could have been edited down, but also pumped up a little bit, and just given a bit more punch.
Does Bond himself have an arc, or?
He does, but they do. Skyfall did a really good. I thought it was really impressive in the way it sprinkled little details about his past that we haven't heard before, which I thought really worked. They do
the Albert Finney thing, all that. Yeah.
They do the same here, but it doesn't work. It feels like you've done that. Don't try and do exactly the same thing, and yet they don't really go into enough detail. but I can't. It's hard to talk about it.
It sounds like a real prick tease. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
even though I'm not supposed to.
It is, you know, like with in the trailer and the teaser you've seen and people have seen. You know, there's lots of things about this. You know, where he learned to ski and this and that. Like, and I was really hoping we'd get some interesting revelations, but they don't really come. And
how's Waltz?
I was so excited to see him as the Bond villain. He's like the ultimate screen villain of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
In a role in a Bond movie that should be tailor-made for him, but he's just delivering the same performance that he did in Bastards.
So it just sounds like everyone is going through the motions.
A little bit. That's what I
felt.
Craig?
Does he do it too?
He's solid, but by the end, I'm like, honestly, I think he's been brilliant. But at the end of the film, I felt, yeah, I'm done with you as Bond now. You're not exploring anything new in this one. Like, I feel like it's time. I want to see someone new in the part now.
Yeah, he seems like I mean, obviously he's over it. And I know that's part of, he's been like that with every interview for each of his films. But at a certain point, when you seem less than enthusiastic and the word on the street is, you know, Die Another Day made a lot of money and they still recast Bond because they just knew in their gut it was time. Yeah. So you really think that's it?
Yeah, and you know, I wonder if his heart was really in this one. You know, the way he talks hasn't been particularly, you know, complimentary about the character, and you know, Mendes hasn't been hugely positive. I didn't think in some interviews I've seen with him. So yeah, it feels like a group of people that are really done with it. But that said, it is a really solid Bond film. I think it's for me, it's probably my third favourite Daniel Craig. Yeah. Skyfall and Casino Royale being better and Quantum being a lot worse.
Now, would you say that, let's do a little fun bit here. Okay. Let's do a ranking of just the Daniel Craig Bond villains. Yeah. So what do you think? Javier Bardem first or Mads?
Bardem is number one for me. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the all-time best ones. How about you?
I would say Bardem, but you know, you have to. It's so easy to not appreciate Casino Royale as much because if Mads Mikkelsen's Le Chiffre didn't work, Daniel Craig's Bond might not have worked too. It gave him. They needed that right out of the gate, and we've since seen in the years after that movie how great Mads is, you know, with Hannibal and everything. So I mean, I feel like Le Chiffre should kind of get a little bit of an edge for just being the guy that helped reset that tone. But yeah, because would you have ended up getting a Bardem and a Mendes and people like that without like right out of the gate, like we're going to do this, we're going to class this back up now. You know who I was really disappointed in was Matthew Allmerich because he's a good actor.
He's a great actor, yeah.
And you know, look, I like some of Marc Forster's movies. And I covered the hell out of Quantum. Yeah. And at that time of my life, that was a very rough time of my life. And, you know, that movie was a good time passer for me. In the years since, I've revisited it, and you can really see it's a victim of the writer's strike. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm afraid of with Spectre. Yeah. And I see it in a couple of days of that.
Yeah, well, and I hope I'm not being too negative. I feel like I've been all I've done is been negative.
You still gave it a 7.3?
Yeah, I think
that's good.
It is good. I think people.
Is there too much
people
water
thinking
joke
that was a
here
terrible.
Somewhere, I know that's not a 7.9 or whatever.
No, I don't know. It's a fun time at the movies. It's just, you know, it's coming after a really good one, and it doesn't quite live up to that. I didn't think.
Yeah. So would you put Waltz ahead of Allmerich?
I would. Yeah.
So it's funny. So the ranking of the movies is actually.
Same
with the ranking of the villains.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, no, I mean, Waltz is really good. I've just seen him do that performance a bunch of times now. It's very similar to his Inglourious Basterds performance.
Is it similar to his work in Green Hornet?
Yeah, a little bit.
Damn it.
And I've started to think that he's a much more interesting actor when he's got Tarantino's words coming out of his mouth. Because
I think everyone
there's nothing better than that. But it's you know, that's it. They seem to be a perfect partnership then too. And so in this one, he's good, but we can talk about it more after everyone's seen it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if his, even though it came out end of last year, I guess, but like, see if his quote unquote villain in Big Eyes was better than his villain in Spectre. You know?
I thought he was bad in Big Eyes. So.
Oh, okay. All right. There we go.
Sorry, Christoph. I know you're a big fan of this podcast.
Yeah, he tunes in every week.
He never misses keeping it real.
No, he doesn't, but he's going to send some hate mail to Superhero Show now. You want to give a plug out to your show and tell people when?
Every Saturday morning, apart from last week, because me and Dan went around. Yeah, we do a 20-minute show called The Superhero Show where we just talk about whatever we fancy that week.
It's my favorite IGN show after this one.
Jim.
It really is. I love it.
I know,
I don't miss an
really
episode.
Sweet. Yeah. No, it's fun. It's really good fun. We're debating whether to turn it into a podcast as well.
You should, yeah. Or just
I think
strip
the
audio from your video.
The viewers want us to, but I think the powers that be don't. So we're figuring that out at the moment. But yeah, thanks for that plug.
And you can they can drop you reader email at
the Superhero Show at IGN.com.
You used to have some really long ass like it was like IGN_ this and that.
Yeah, UK feedback at IGN.com.
And then you guys also do Rebel Base. That's
Rebel Base. That's Dan and Gav do the weekly Star Wars show, which drops during the week.
You guys, and your podcast just won a big award over in London, didn't it?
We did. We won.
Come on, tout your own.
Games Media Awards. We won Podcast of the Year in the same week. In the same week that we did our live 300th podcast, which wasn't just. See, this is how we do it back home.
You guys did a live one.
We did a live show which featured a band and a magician and the podcast. It was a variety show. Rich Bearpark did some magic on stage. We're
going to miss him. He was there. He was one of the IGN video guys.
Yeah.
But he was also a magician. He was the man was a sorcerer. He really was.
Let's get Kyle doing some magic.
Exactly. It's we should give a shout out to. We did on our 300th episode, but our producer Kyle Watson, who has to listen to us ramble on every week and put this online for us. Thank you, Kyle. As always.
He's got the magic fingers.
Well, I don't know what you've heard. But all right, so I think that'll about do it for this week's podcast. People can follow you on Twitter at @TillyTweets.
That is correct.
I'm at Jim Vejvoda. We'll be back hopefully next week with both Chris. Chris Carroll might not be in next week, but at least with Terry Schwartz.
Yeah. An improvement on me.
Oh, come on. I want to say thank you so much. We don't really get to hang out enough. We see each other maybe once a year at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We'll have to do something about this, He and I like to knock back a few pints or whiskeys together.
Yep.
So, yeah. So thanks for joining us this week.
Jim. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, as always, for watching. And for all things movies, keep it here on IGN.